After an 11-week wait, it's time to go racing once again in GT America, powered by AWS. The site, Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Always a challenge, doubly so though, with the curveball thrown by Mother Nature. Rain in the area has left the track damp. The rain has more or less tapered off, but the cloudy conditions remain, as does a strong breeze down the front straightaway and puddles around this racetrack as well. Teams and drivers will have to navigate that for 40 minutes. Single driver sprint racing in GT America, powered by AWS. Make that 4 classes of cars part of this field. Here are the weather conditions. Track temp 73 degrees, a brisk 69 degrees in the air, and still quite a bit of humidity as well, with the chance for more rain showers before the day is done in the forecast too. Hello, my name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. It's Amanda Busick down in the damp pit lane for us. We've had to wait a little while here, Calvin, but we're ready to go once again with a great mix of machinery as ever in GT America.
Yeah, even though we've waited 11 weeks, there's kind of a continual story here about Mamo Gidley and the dominance of the Ski Autosport team. They've won 7 of the 8 races so far. They look like they're on the back foot a little bit yesterday. A few technical issues with the race car. Weren't quite on the pace. What does he do out this morning? Go and plant the car on pole position. So Mamo's not skipped a beat despite the break. He's been busy in his karts, kind of keeping fit and tuned up, and the team is ready to almost seal the deal here. I mean, if we leave here and they have more than a 100-point lead, that will do it, and he's got 70-point margin right now.
It is conceivable that they come away with a clinched title with 4 races to go, but Tony Davis has been keeping tabs with Mamo this season and, again, was the closest to him in qualifying. They'll share the front row here this weekend, and it is a big weekend for Tony, not just racing in GT America this time.
Yeah, he's running in GT World Challenge America with Scott Andrews as his coach, so he's super fast, and I'll just double the track time, which should help Tony this weekend. Maybe put a challenge on it here for this victory. He's only 3/10 off in quali this morning, so he's very close, so should be a spirited fight at the front at least.
Let's go ahead and get down to the third member of the team. Amanda Busick is trackside.
Hey guys, yeah, a bit of a scramble here. I did see some drivers running down pit lane to get into their race cars for today. I don't know how race control will see that. Some drivers just now getting settled in and strapped in. I know we do have that 5-minute warning when it comes to working on the race car. That aside, the conditions have been, the conversation of the afternoon. I do see every race car down here, of course, on the slick tires at present, but there is weather in the area, so we'll see how that opens up. I was just over at the podium for the finish of the McLaren Trophy race, and there were some sprinkles falling on us there, but drivers are strapped in, ready to go. I do see Craig Lumsden down there in that GT4 machine putting his helmet on, so we'll get him in that race car as well. But it is go time here for race number 1 in GT America.
Thanks, Amanda. Busy day for you down in the pits. We really appreciate your efforts. And should we get some rain before this race is all said and done, remember, typically these races happen without pit stops, and it's about 50-50 in terms of which teams on this grid have experience doing competitive pit stops. Some do them regularly, others not. So that could be an interesting wrinkle here today. 4 miles around, 14 turns at Wisconsin's Road America. Calvin, what makes this place so special?
I think there's everything special about this place. It's the longest track we've run on. You mentioned 14 turns, and some of those are some of the most daunting you'll ever experience in the world of motorsports here in North America. Long straightaways, big break zones, good overtaking opportunities. Just a fun racetrack.
It is indeed. Opened in 1955 after racing outgrew the city streets of the village of Elkhart Lake and the surrounding county roads. Some drama here on the grid. This is the return of Schwest Povolato Racing. Did not see them the last time out at Road Atlanta. Ross Schwest has been quick this weekend, qualified 3rd. They're having some troubles on the grid as the rest of the field has left, barring the number 610. This is Craig Lumsden, lone GT4 entry here this weekend. Amanda mentioned he was a bit late, perhaps getting into that car. They've got him strapped in now, and he does head away. The good news for Craig is doesn't really lose any position. He was scheduled to start out back, and again, only car in his class here this weekend at Road America. Speaking of the different classes, as Ross Schwest drives off as well, we should note that Lawrence Tomlinson might be starting 10th today in the GT2 car in the field, but he qualified inside the top 5 overall, so a lot of pace in that GT2 Ginetta here this weekend. Here's the starting grid. On the pole position, it's Memo Gidley in the Audi for Ski Autosports. Tony Davis, second in the championship next to him for HP Tech. Then it's Ross Schwest, was scheduled to start third. We'll see if he's able to get back to that position to take the start. Next to him, the Callaway Corvette of Mirko Schultes. Kyle Washington, third in the championship, starts back in the fifth spot. Next to him, the rookie, Scott Blend. Then in row number 4, it's Dave Musial Sr. for Wright Motorsports and Mark Buzzo back in the championship for the first time in a little while. Same can be said for Tony Ferraro for Ferraro Motorsports. There's Lawrence Tomlinson in the GT2 Ginetta. David Lecco racing his Cup Class Ginetta, starting in 11th. And then Craig Lumsden, who we saw pulling out onto the racetrack. A little bit delayed, but in plenty of time to take this start. He'll start at 12th today.
I think significant with Lumsden getting going and passing Schwest. I think if all of the cars are past you before if you leave the formation grid there, he's going to have to stay back there. So he's going to be out of place, as is Tomlinson, who goes to the back as kind of dedicated or designated by class in terms of the grid lineup, and he had a really fast time in qualifying this morning. So we're going to have a couple of really quick cars coming through from the back of the field.
I'll keep an eye on that for sure, and just confirmation to what your point was there, Calvin, because the rest of the field got by the Ross Schwest machine. He does have to start out back. We'll see how quickly he can pick his way up through the field. Taking a look at the track conditions here, you can see online it definitely looks pretty dry, but if you venture offline, let's say you're trying to make a pass, for instance, or you drop a wheel into the grass, get a wheel up on the painted curbs, there's still plenty of treacherous spots around this circuit.
Yeah, and there's high speed around here, and it's going to make it tricky for those two faster cars that we said potentially coming through this field. Certainly the GT2 car is well suited here. Thompson had a really fast lap in that Ginetta this morning, so he's got speed, but he's going to have to venture out onto that damp part of the racetrack. He's going to make some moves around the SRO 3 category.
Lights off on the safety car. 40 minutes on the clock. Memo Gidley trying to make this a championship season. He can get one step closer with another big result here today. That's the red Audi Ski Autosports, left-hand side of the screen. But next to him, Tony Davis trying to stay alive in the championship fight. He'll start from the outside of the front row, all alone in row number 2. Mirko Schultes, the German driver in the Callaway Corvette. Behind him, Kyle Washington and Scott Blend, two hard chargers, starting 5th and 6th. Here comes the field now, up the hill in good alignment. Schwest again having to start in the back of the SRO 3 class, just waiting to get into the acceleration zone. And the pole sitter, Memo Gidley, will start to pull away now, puts that right foot down and immediately pulls the gap over Davis. The field fans out behind him, but a picture-perfect start for the pole sitter.
Yeah, absolutely. Using his experience there just to get that jump and lead down into turn 1. Davis protecting from Schultes there. Washington lines up P4 as they enter turn 1. Blend right behind him.
Everyone tiptoeing, still trying to come to grips with the track conditions, which are totally different than any of these drivers have seen so far this weekend, unless they ventured out in totally damp conditions earlier today in the GT World Challenge America practice session. Some drivers doing double duty, of course. Perfect start for Gidley, weaving back and forth, trying to build the heat in the Pirelli P0s. The fight is for second place. Tony Davis has it. Mirko Schultes, though, would like to get around, and so too would Kyle Washington, who is dispatched of Scott Blend already.
Yeah, just as they dodge the back end of that Callaway Corvette there, the brakes on there for turn 5. So Washington is looking racy early, just as he's done so many times this year, though. The opening lap, Memo Gidley is on it.
Seems like he's had the advantage on cold tires all year long. Driver of his experience, no surprise there. Washington unable to get by Schultes. That's left him vulnerable to Blend. That's the bright yellow and purple machine. Taking a peek to the inside there at the end of Hurry Downs. Couldn't make the pass, and so we focus our attention once more on Davis, who is being hounded by Schultes.
Yeah, and in these conditions, this is where someone who doesn't have the experience of a Memo Gidley is going to tread a little bit more carefully. Look at the lead that Gidley has established. Washington breaks out of line there, but nowhere to go on the approach to the kink.
That lead was 2.6 seconds after 2 sectors. It's up to 3.6 seconds now as the field thunders down toward Canada corner.
Yeah, when you don't have experience in conditions like that, I mean, these race cars are extremely quick. You make a mistake, you put a foot offline, you're going to go for a ride here, and Gidley's just feeling it, has got the hammer down. But I think that's going to stabilize a little bit once we get through this opening lap and all of those other drivers get a little bit of tire temperature and grip in their race car.
Gidley is gone by the time the rest of the field gets to turn 14 and makes that right-handed bend back up onto the front straightaway. Tony Davis still in second place, but his troubles aren't done yet. Mirko Schultes, so much experience, so much seat time in this Callaway Corvette, and he's got a big run. He'll have the inside line as well into turn number 1 if he can stay alongside.
Yeah, look like the mid-range power there, then it kind of stabilizes towards the end of the straightaways, and Davis just takes the line through turn 1. Blind runs wide there, but stays in bounds. Those perpendicular lines are essentially where the track will call you in terms of exceeding the track specs and stuff. So Race Direct will be keeping an eye on that here in turn 1 especially.
Watching the march forward from Schwest and Tomlinson. As expected, they've picked up a couple of positions. Schwest up to 7th now. Tomlinson tucked in right behind him. That's right behind this fight that we're watching. Just got a glimpse of the silver Corvette driven by Ross Schwest, who's done well to recover from whatever caused the delay in the pit lane. Remember, a good pace in that Corvette, having qualified on the 2nd row.
Yeah, we'd expect that he'd be able to carve his way through this field a little bit, but it's not going to be easy. And as we said, if you're off the traditional racing line here, you are touching those damp patches, which can get super sketchy. Schultes is definitely keeping the heat on Davis here. Gap up front now is just massive. 5.5 seconds in a lap and a half by Memo Gidley, making a statement.
Rest of the field, though, is starting to get a bit more comfortable. The difference in Sector 1 times not quite as vast as it was the last time. By Sector 2, though, another 0.6 of a second to Memo Gidley, whose lead has ballooned 5.5 seconds over the fight for second place.
Well, that is awesome to hear these GT3 cars whistle down that back straight along with that GT2 car in the mix as well.
If you're wondering about the difference, SRO 3, that is a GT3 category, also accepts older cars that are out of homologation, so the Callaway Corvette is an example of that. Lots of downforce, lots of driver aids, ABS, traction control, all the things that help you feel comfortable inside the race car, including the downforce. GT2, by contrast, tons of power, but not nearly as much downforce. It makes the car super quick in a straight line, though, and let's see that on display here as Tomlinson in that Ginetta pulls to the inside first of Schwest, now to Dave Musial Sr., picking up 2 positions at the tail end of that front straightaway.
Yeah, that's the perfect example there of the difference in horsepower between that SRO 3 machine and that GT2 car. Tomlinson loving life, loves this racetrack. And he's really hoping to see more GT2 manufacturers involved in this championship moving forward. I know that Stefan Rattel and the whole SRO organization would as well.
Bumper fields over in Europe in the GT2 European Series, but you're right, Lawrence, with some quotes to the press this week talking about how important it is to start to build a customer base in the US, not just for Ginetta, but he's actually gone to other manufacturers that sell GT2 machines and have been encouraging them to really put the full court press on American potential customers to see that grid grow here stateside. We've seen them in dribs and drabs over the last few years, but nothing with the kind of consistency that we were hoping for. But performances like this really showcase how much fun a GT2 car can be.
It is, and that Ginetta is really a stable platform. Looks like it's got a little bit more downforce than previous iterations of the GT2 category that we've seen. So looks like a fun race car to drive, and he's really wringing its neck here at Road America. Carl Washington, that is a risky move there on the inside of the King. It really puts Mirko Schultes in no man's land, and that gives Blind a bit of a run, but he gets pinched there right as it curves there on the run down to Canada.
That's the top part of this section of the track. We call it a straightaway, but clearly it isn't, as Washington sends it up the inside. Can he get it slowed down? No, he can't. He's off in the runoff. That's going to allow Blind through. It lets Tomlinson through as well.
Brave move there by Kyle Washington, but you saw the damp racetrack, just couldn't get it wound down, probably got into the ABS, washes out wide and loses spots.
Puts Blind back to the position, the highest position he's been in so far, up to 4th place. in the slipstream now behind Mirko Schultes. That's the fight for the final step of the podium. Tony Davis has gotten into a nice rhythm here as of late, starting to leave that group behind a little bit. Here comes Tomlinson, putting all that power to the ground, going past Scott Blind. Will he triumph for Mirko Schultes too? Not this time.
Not quite there. Really narrow approach to turn one is going to give Blind a better run through that corner, but probably not enough to retaliate there. But you're right, Tony Davis has suddenly got a little bit of temperature in those tires. He's feeling a bit more comfortable. Trimmed a good second off of his previous best. He's now within about 8, 9 tenths of the laps that Gidley's running up front. He has the fastest lap of the race at a 2:10.85, comparing to 2:06 in qualifying here earlier today.
Schwest picked off Dave Musial Sr. on that last lap. Here comes Tomlinson once again, late on the brakes, not alongside Schultes, but it forced him to go awfully late on the brakes. That sent him wide. Gap opens up to the inside once again. Tomlinson tries to thread the needle there, but Schultes won't give it up easily.
Great racecraft there by Mirko Schultes, and certainly Lawrence is really feeling it right now. He's pushing hard with this car that he's absolutely embraced, and it seems like it's getting stronger every single weekend that we see in competition here this year.
Small group running that Ginetta, just a handful of team members. They started the season working with Dollarhide Racing, but now more or less run by Ginetta employees. And again, that's part of the effort to showcase that you can have a lot of fun on a relative budget compared to, say, GT3, for instance. Roughly half the price to go GT2 racing. But look at the performance, nearly 800 horsepower when he puts the right foot down.
Yeah, and theoretically a little bit less downforce, what you think is all about cornering, but also aids in the braking zones as well. So those SRO3 cars that he's all around right now should have a little bit more advantage in those braking zones that are so critical here at Road America.
Should mention that Lawrence is a very accomplished driver in addition to the fact that he heads up Ginetta, a company he purchased several decades back at this stage, but a former class winner at Le Mans, won a V2V Endurance Challenge Championship back in 2016 as well. And look at that Ginetta go, rocket ship in a straight line.
Yeah, that last third of the straightaway is really it comes into its own. Lower downforce and big horsepower makes that move. So that seems to be the sweet spot there on the run to turn one for him.
Fastest lap of the race still belongs to Memo Gidley. Tony Davis, though, just about a second off of that outright pace, sitting in second place. But how about it? GT2 Ginetta with the third fastest lap of anybody, and that's basically what we saw in the qualifying session.
It is. So he's kind of cut and paste that kind of pace within the field. He's been having fun. He probably said, that's okay, I'd like to be at the back, have a little bit of a race here. See, now he's got clean air, how his lap times can compare with the two up front.
Let's shift the focus back a little bit. Schultes holds the third spot. Scott Blind behind him. Kyle Washington's back up on the wheel after his slide down in Canada Corner lap and a half or so ago. And he's got company in the form of Ross Schwest, that Corvette, the new C8 Corvette. Compare that to the older C7-derived Callaway Corvette that Schultes drives.
Yeah, I think for Kyle Washington, he seems like he's got maybe a little bit more pace. He's just got to get into that rhythm once again, try and make some nice clean moves. Not easy with the racetrack and how it's damp offline, of course. Beautiful corner here, that long duration carousel just keeps coming at you. Got that kind of safety net now with that grass creek that's been kind of put in almost every corner around this race circuit. It was just at the kink initially, which I thought was a great idea. I'm not sure with it being everywhere, almost widens the line. They're still going to venture out there and still trim the grass for Road America.
Awesome scrap here, a couple of Corvettes, albeit different models, and then the two Porsche 911 sandwiched in between. Scott Blind, a champion 3 times over in single-make Porsche racing last season, and unlike the bulk of this field, which basically, unless they went testing, were not in race cars since the last round of the season at Road Atlanta, Scott's also got a program in Carrera Cup North America this year, and he's had some good results in that downtime. I have to believe that's helped him stay sharp.
Yeah, such a big break for a lot of these drivers who don't have the experience to kind of come back and just pick up where they left off. Schwest is really putting the pressure on Washington there. Thought the Corvette was going to get alongside him into the brake zone, but Carl just hangs on there. little bit shallow on his entry to turn 3. Needs to just hit his marks, make sure you get a good clean radius through turn 3. It's such an important corner on this blast down the moraine sweep.
How about this? Second place, Tony Davis. We said he was getting into his rhythm. Well, he just did the fastest lap of the race, about 0.2 of a second quicker than Memo Gidley's best lap, and closing in a little bit on the leader. Amanda has more on Tony's story.
Yeah, what I think I'm most glad of is I don't have to go harass Scott Andrews and the team on when they're going to enter into our GT World Challenge race, because they're doing that this weekend. Guys, I see a car off. I'll go back to you.
All right, Amanda, we'll get right back to you in just a second, but that's Dave Musial Sr., who has gone for a spin, was running 7th at the time, Wright Motorsports driver. Didn't look like he hit anything, though, so I think he should be able to get back into the fight. Amanda, if you want to pick up on the Tony Davis story.
Yeah, so Tony Davis pulling double duty here this weekend. It's good to see in that 24-card field that we'll have in the 3-hour race here tomorrow. But we've talked about this team all season long as Tony gets up to speed in this GT America class. We saw him debut last year, now racing full-time this season. And just talking about the experience here this weekend, they also have the Evo kit that Ferrari released that they're testing out this weekend. Tony was telling me about the difference of the downforce that he finds between those platforms. Currently electing to race with the 296 platform that was out prior. But Tony came through the Ferrari Challenge ranks. If you didn't know about Tony, he is a fireworks hobbyist and put on an incredible display here right at Road America about 3 years ago during Ferrari Challenge. But welcome to GT World Challenge to Tony Davis, and he's going to love the idea that he's throwing down some fast laps in that Ferrari right now.
Just up the ante again here with another strong lap, a 2:10 flat. Memo Gidley also upped his personal best, but still about 1/10 of a second off of what Tony is doing right now. Trouble for Tony is it's 7.5 seconds behind the leader. Meanwhile, remember we saw the spun car of Dave Musial Sr. I think we've got to look at what happened to him.
Just in braking under turn 5, so he had too much rear brake bias there, so needs to dial that in a little bit.
That's allowed both Mark Muzzo and Tony Ferraro to get through, dropped Musial down to 10th overall, 9th in class.
Typically when you're in damp conditions, you'll wind that brake bias by a little bit, so you see Kyle make a nice move there on Mirko down into turn 5, so you've got to adjust back because this track tends to dry out a little bit. You got to make those adjustments certainly on the fly.
Explain to the layman at home what the brake bias does. What are you feeling in the car when you make those adjustments?
It's just the braking force from between the front and rear axles of the race car. So when you're in the wet, it's very easy to lock up the fronts when you're approaching a corner. So you can dial it back a little bit immediately onto a damp racetrack. But what it can do if you then dry out, you're going to get that braking force in the front, and it's going to whale the what am I trying to say? Wag the tail of the dog there on the back end. You see it weave around under braking if you got too much rear brake bias. That's what it looked like to me for Musial Sr. there down into turn 5.
Yeah, pretty quick snap when he went to the pedal. For Dave, who will make that adjustment now. He's put his head down, actually did a pretty nice lap after that spin. And he's not too far away from running down Tony Ferraro to get back to 8th. Meanwhile, Kyle Washington has absolutely left this battle behind since getting around Mirko Schulte. Should add that Scott Blind also had made that pass. So Mirko's back to the 5th spot. Ross West has him in the crosshairs now, and this is the newest offering from Corvette up against a car that's a bit longer in the tooth, shall we say.
Yeah, Mutsu's found some pace here now as well in the Ferry Motorsport. Ferrari's kind of caught on the back of this little race going on between the two Corvettes in front of him. Meanwhile, as I suspected, Kyle Washington does have pace. He's escaped the clutches here pretty quickly.
Turned in a nice lap the last time by.
Davis continues to lay down fast laps in this motor race. And speaking to the team, the Ski Autosport team yesterday said, yeah, we're having a great season, don't get me wrong, but, you know, it seemed like Memo's really making it happen on the opening laps of this race, and they kind of forecast what we're seeing immediately here today. Those first 2 or 3 laps were just monumental by Gidley, and now the rest of the players are gradually catching up and finding their stride a little bit.
And don't forget this discussion about the fastest lap, it's not just academic, it's not just bragging rights. This is how we set the grid for race 2. So at the moment, Davis would be on provisional pole as we watch Schwest continue to hound the 70, the Callaway Corvette of Schultes. Force Mirko onto a defensive line there in 6.
Yeah, as soon as you start doing that around this racetrack, you just compromise your lap times, and that just allows everyone to escape your clutches a little bit. And I think what Kyle and Scott Blind and the likes have just been able to take off a little bit here.
And you're right, Mutso with great pace here at the moment, driving for our Ferry Motorsport, Canadian team with such a rich pedigree of success, championship caliber team in what is now GT World Challenge America. And actually one of the drivers that helped them to that championship is back for the first time in quite some time. Miguel Molina, we'll see him with AF Corsa alongside Matthias Paris Compact tomorrow in GT World Challenge.
I was just thinking exactly the same thing. I think it was 2018 when they won the Sprint X Championship. I think it was he and Tony Vilander together. Certainly our Ferry had a heavy footprint in the top class back then.
No doubt about it. Miguel part of the Sprint X component of the calendar back in those days, back where there was a single driver element to the championship as well as some races that were 2 drivers, more or less what we've evolved to now. And this is kind of the remnant of that single driver format. GT America, some mixed class racing here as Craig Lumsden watches this fight for 6th and 7th and 8th come flying by. That's the difference in performance between SRO 3, effectively GT3, and GT4.
And as you'd suspect, the newer generation Corvette has a little bit more downforce and probably consequently a little bit more drag down the straightaway compared to the Callaway Corvette. Like Mutsu was getting a good draft behind both of them, closed in a little bit towards the end of the straightaway and up into turn 1.
Schultes was forced on the defensive this part of the track the last time by. This time doesn't look like Schwest is quite close enough to take a lunge. Schultes still defended the inside. And now the 2 Corvettes rumble toward the Corvette bridge, fittingly enough.
Impressed how he could run that amount of rolling speed through turn 5 with that kind of shallow entry of attack that he used there.
By the way, Memo Gidley just answered back in the battle for the fastest lap and pole for race 2. First driver in the 2:08s. 2:08.978.
He just may have been playing a game there. Let the fuel load burn off a little bit, keep some freshness in those Pirelli P0s, and just listen to your team to tell you what you need to do.
3rd overall, Lawrence Tomlinson, but he's got company. Here comes Scott Blind now, who has the 3rd fastest lap of the race. A far cry from what Gidley and Davis have been able to achieve already. This will be tough for him, though, in terms of trying to race against the GT2 class car, which should have the legs on all the straightaways, but it's the twisty stuff where the GT3 car should shine.
Yeah, just the raceability. You get up against the car that's got really good straightaway speed here. Road America is hard to be close enough to make a move before they stretch the gap once again. Kind of a concertina effect with differing performance levels like we see here.
Big question is, does this hold Scott up at all? And can Kyle Washington close down that gap? There is Kyle just coming over the hill, primarily white, but all the different colors of E-Boost on that car as well. And he has left the fight between the Corvettes in his dust. Schultes still holding off Ross Schwest.
Yeah, pretty evenly matched there in terms of best laps so far today between Blind and Washington. But you're right, maybe Tomlinson's pace now can compromise Blind a little bit and allow Kyle back in the game. What a racetrack this is, so much elevation change, about 171 feet total, top to bottom. Just plunge down this hill. You stand beside the racetrack here, just listening to these race cars echo between the trees is fantastic. 60 miles an hour rolling speed through the apex of turn 5, blasting up the hill, grabbing gears.
We've talked a lot about the GT2 Ginetta in the field, but it's not the only one. Only Ginetta, I should say, here this weekend. David Lecco running in the Cup class. About to see the overall leader come through. Finally had a chance to meet David earlier this week at the big fan fest that happens in the village of Elkhart Lake. All of the race cars across the entire SRO America paddock parade into the town. It's open to fans, free of charge, with live music, food, drinks, entertainment, the whole shebang. And it's a really great time. Anyway, I got a chance to meet David there and really excited about his racing, excited to see what the future holds there too. Just got passed by the overall leader, Memo Gidley, and Amanda has more on Memo.
I think one of the best parts about this summer break being over is just coming back in the paddock and seeing everyone, and someone with always a big smile on their face is Memo Gidley. But Calvin and I got to fly up with Phil Creighton and Rosella, so we got to kick off this party a little earlier from the Delta Atlanta flight to Milwaukee. But there was a couple of gremlins here the weekend with the call. They did have an electrical issue yesterday, but Rosella ahead of this race said that everything looked just fine. But yeah, Memo on an absolute tear out there, showing the race today why he is the championship leader.
Here we go. Finally, Schwest gets the move done up into turn one, gets around the Callaway Corvette. Mutsu's going to get a run two on the approach to turn three.
And Mark with a nice run. Ooh, little twitch at the back of the Callaway Corvette there. As well as that car fired off at the start of this race. Not sure it's quite as compliant as Mirko would like. This is not what we're used to seeing with him. He's usually moving forward.
I'd to say the same thing. Normally his lap times improve as the race continues.
Now Schwest gets around. That puts him up into the 6th spot overall, 5th in class. Cost him a lot of time, though. How long it took to get around. That's allowed Washington to escape to the tune of about 6.5 seconds at this stage. By the way, should also mention our GT4 competitor. This is Craig Lumsden. Son Zach has been busy racing in a couple different championships here this weekend. Pair of them spent a lot of time over the years at the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb, which happened since we were on track last. And it was Son Zach that attacked Pikes Peak this year. Craig coming up to speed, though. He's been setting his personal best lap with some regularity as this race has progressed.
Yeah, and he's the only GT4 competitor to have made all of the rounds so far. We saw Jason Bell for a couple of events. Great to see him back. I'm not sure what his plans are for Barber and Indy. Just Colorado. A fun racetrack, even if you don't have other competitors, Ryan. Just fun to explore and find the limits around this 4-mile facility. Just one of the best, one that everyone looks forward to coming back to, despite the long break. It's certainly worth it when you get back here and get back into a race car.
Totally agree. This is one of those places you don't have to be in a fight. You can just enjoy the thrill of lapping the place. Special racetrack.
That was weird. You saw the brake lights flash. I'm not sure if Mirko's got a bit of a long pedal and he just likes to touch the brake pedal with his left foot there and just make sure the pedal's going to be up when he needs it on that fast approach to turn one. But Mutsu was probably thinking, what's going on? I suddenly saw the lights flash momentarily, I believe.
Well, if he is having some kind of an issue, that might explain why he slipped back as he has. Mark Mutsu now up to the 6th position ahead of Mirko Schultes.
Sometimes you'll do that, particularly if you run the curbs pretty aggressively, or this grasscrete area that we see around a lot of the corners now can kind of shake the rotors a little bit and knock the pads back. When you go for that brake pedal, it's just a little bit long as you try and reseat and get the piston pushing the brake pad back onto the rotor.
He certainly used all of the curb there.
Yeah, it's really changed. I think the whole feel of this racetrack. Before, you just had the painted curbs and then you were dropping wheels. And I liked it in the King because it's such a high-speed corner. If you get it wrong there, the consequences were massive. I'm not sure you should have it on like this corner, even the carousel. It's obviously a fast corner. If you spare it off there, you're doing high speed. You got that big gravel trap to work with, however, to safeguard you there. And then you see it right there. I think it just allows the drivers, I'd hate to relate it like a video game, but there's not the consequences anymore. Do you know what I mean? You're just going to push it a little bit further, and I think it takes away a little bit of the challenge.
Drivers I've talked to have indicated you lose out on ultimate grip when you get out there. Something around 40% grip loss is the number I heard thrown around when I was here a month ago. So in theory, there's not a huge advantage to be gained by opening your hands and running that wider radius if you can't keep the speed up in some of the corners. Clearly in 14, though, it's very usable because just about everybody gets out there.
I think it's just the commitment factor.
Sure.
And the risk versus reward goes away a little bit.
Schwest working his way around Lecco, who, by the way, is in a backup chassis, and credit to the Ginetta folks and Team L&T. They had this here. David forced to go to the backup after an incident earlier this weekend. Super enthusiastic, though, about this opportunity to come race in this paddock. Grew up in St. Louis, but he's called Austin, Texas home for quite some time. A lot of racing down in Texas. First season racing at this level.
Yeah, he's really embraced it despite, not having other competitors out there on a regular basis. He's just really enjoyed the experience, learning racetracks against some of them for the first time. So just a great experience, and it looks like a really fun race car to be driving as well, doing it.
He assured me it was when I was chatting with him yesterday, and that's part of the thrill of all of this. But he and his buddy Mustafa's kind of chronicling his racing journey with social media and other video clips. Having a lot of fun with this, and a bit mum on what exactly the plans were for next year, but they're certainly exploring some different opportunities. Passionate about that Ginetta, though. It's been part of his racing life really since he got started a handful of years back.
So here, now he's gone around Schultz as he's taken off a little bit, so we'll see what the clean air does on the front end of that Ferry Motorsport Ferrari, see if he can go chase down Schwest once again.
Mark's had some good runs this year, 2 podium finishes. Best result of the season actually came back in the season opener, runner-up race 1 at Sonoma. And I misspoke earlier, I said he'd been away for a little bit, but that's not the case. He's run every round of the championship so far. 4th in points coming in, 112 behind the championship leader, but for the long-time Ferrari Challenge veteran, first time we've seen him contest the full season at the GT3 level.
Yeah, we missed Mirko, and Ross Schwest was actually away. I think it was
Yeah.
the birth of his 3rd daughter, I believe, was why he missed the last rounds at Road Atlanta. So congratulations to the Schwest family there. Mirko's he's never committed to the full season. Obviously did his local race, or relatively local race at Sebring, but didn't see him at Road Atlanta either.
He likes to pick and choose his races where it fits in with the family schedule, and if it's a track he particularly enjoys, he makes sure to clear that schedule. Scott Blind here continuing to chase Lawrence Tomlinson for 3rd overall. Mentioned that he's been staying busy in Carrera Cup. I'm told he tested earlier this week at Indianapolis in preparation for a big round in the Carrera Cup Championship. So he's been in the race car a lot. And even if it's a different car, it's still the same 911 basic package. So all of that is a benefit to him to stay sharp when he jumps back into this GT3 car. Amanda, what can you tell us about Scott?
Yeah, I was talking to Andrew Davis earlier. That's another pairing that I keep asking when they're going to pop up into the GT World Challenge Series. But that's exactly what this series was intended for. We get to see these guys pull all these additional seat time throughout the weekend, and we've seen a lot of drivers ever since its iteration pop up into the co-driver situation in GT World Challenge. But Scott, and talking to Andrew, they've worked alongside each other for, gosh, 4 seasons now. I think it was 2022 they linked up, but said that they have a good experience here. They came testing here, but Scott on the road to maybe his 2nd podium here this season.
He's another one that had his best result in the season opener, immediately on the podium, and I'm sure he had to be thinking, well, this is a lot like last year when he won all those races, won the 3 championships in single make, but it's been a little tougher since then. A couple 4th place finishes since that podium, but really hasn't come any closer than that. This has been the kind of day that he dreams of going into the long summer break, and all that hard work, the testing, staying sharp in other series, that's all helping him out right now.
Yeah, and he's super fit as well, so he obviously puts his work in off the racetrack as well in terms of getting in the gym. He's got a great coach in Andrew Davis, such a gentleman, such a nice guy, but fast race car driver. He understands these cars so well, and he's going to lead him in the right direction. Mike Johnson involved as well with the running of that team. So it's a really tight-knit group with great personnel involved.
Don't look now. There's probably not enough time left for it to matter. But that lead that Memo Gidley had that was up close to 8 seconds, it's down to 5.3 at the moment. So Tony Davis getting into a really nice rhythm here. And I think that bodes extremely well looking ahead to tomorrow and his debut in GT World Challenge America. I think that could be a Pro-Am lineup that on pace at least, they should be in the mix, and then it's up to the team that's going to be doing live pit stops in a competitive situation really for the first time. So really excited to see what HP Tech, Tony Davis, Scott Andrews and company can do tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think with the conditions tomorrow, I mean, there might be a little bit of rain around early, but it looks a little bit brighter, hotter and sunnier tomorrow, and the track's going to be rubbered in with the continuous racing that we've had here this afternoon. So the grip level should be up for the start tomorrow. I'm going to give Tony Davis the confidence he's looking for in those opening laps to keep it a little bit tighter to Gidley.
Gained half a second on Memo in Sector 1, gave it back in Sector 2. That's happening well in front of this fight here, about 25 seconds. Back to Tomlinson from Davis. I think that 20 seconds. 25 seconds from the leader back to Tomlinson. And Blind effectively matching Tomlinson's lap times, but making the lap time in much different ways, as we've talked about. The straight line speed for that GT2 Ginetta, noteworthy, but then the downforce really helps Scott Blind out in the middle of the lap. Talking about the weather, Amanda's down in it. She can give us the latest.
Well, we keep seeing more of that gray and gray start creeping in, and we've seen some drops down here on pit lane over the course of this race, but now picking up, becoming more steady. I'm curious of how it is around the track, but could make it a little dicey here at the last push in this race, guys.
Yeah, looking at my weather app, I think you're spot on, Amanda. There's a lot of rain kind of approaching the circuit right now, so only 6 minutes to go, but the last lap or two might be a little bit treacherous for the leaders.
There goes Lumsden under the Corvette bridge, followed closely by Lawrence Tomlinson, who is closing in, of course, to lap the GT4 traffic once more. There's Blind again. This is where the GT3 car with all the downforce should start to close in. We see that gap come down, but then as soon as we get out of the carousel, all of a sudden it opens back up again.
See wet tires at the ready there.
I think that might be for the next race, Toyota GR Cup.
Continentals, yeah, saw that. So I just looked at the tread and then looked at the sidewall. You're ahead of. Be a little bit late to be switching tires. I think you just got to hang on and tiptoe around, even if we got a downforce at this stage of the game. Blind is keeping the pressure on here.
Sure is.
You have to think with that lower downforce car, tire deck may start to come into play a little bit deeper into these races.
That's true. So Big Tomlinson will have to feel his way through. For Blind, hasn't had that.
He's wide there. Tomlinson missed his turning point, really wide through the corner. You can see the steering angle as he came off the corner was not normal.
Yeah, could it be the tire wear? Could it be we're starting to get some of that rain that Amanda talked about around certain parts of the track?
Plus the pressure of someone suddenly really close to you.
Wonder how much Scott really wants to push the issue here. He's solidly in third in class. No real pressure right now from Kyle Washington behind. Last thing you want to do is accidentally force Tomlinson into a mistake that costs you a bunch of momentum, or you get collected in that mistake. All of a sudden, a really good day goes away.
Yeah, as you said, it's been a long time, right? Opening round at Sonoma since he's seen that podium in this category of racing anyway, so you'd certainly want to try and maintain that. But you know what a race is like. You see a car in front of you, you want to pass it, you want to put the pressure on.
Getting reports of some raindrops in turn 7.
It's the next corner. We're in turn 6 right there with Tomlinson. You got to be really careful of these painted curbs. They can get super slick, catch you out if you're loaded up and still got cornering load in the car as you lean on those.
Hate to throw away a really good run, especially for a battle that doesn't make a difference in terms of the points that are paid out. Scott will stand on the podium regardless of if he's ahead of that Ginetta or not. Tell you what, Tony Davis, all of a sudden, it's only 3.8 seconds, the lead. Gidley back to Davis. It's enough to make you wonder if there's something amiss or if Memo's just managing this thing.
He's teased us a couple of times this year. Rosella's on the horn to him and just telling him what the gaps are. Should be white flag next time by, so he's got basically almost 2 laps to complete here and bring it home, but he can't afford to get it too tight, particularly if there's suddenly some precipitation on the racetrack and the Audis maybe not as suited to the Ferrari when we get those conditions, but he was slipping there through turn 3 a little bit as well.
Yeah, Davis was a second faster on the last lap. At this rate, that's not enough to catch Gidley, but it does make you wonder. Sector 1 time for Gidley at 37.6. What does Tony Davis do at 37.5? So basically even through the first sector on what we think will be the penultimate lap.
Yeah, I was chatting to Rosella at the airport the other day, as Amanda alluded to. We bumped into her and Phil Creighton, who run the operation here. Rosella obviously engineers the car for Memo, and talking about the season, and she still doesn't like the one that got away. They've only been beaten once this year, and it still kind of barbs her a little bit. That's the kind of competitor that she is.
Race 2 at Sebring, to be precise. Yeah, they've been just about perfect so far this year. Fastest lap, I said race 2, I meant race 1 at Sebring. Fastest lap in most of the races, pole in the majority of the races. No finish worse than second. That's pretty good by anybody's standard.
Yeah.
But it ain't perfect.
Yeah, Johnny O walked in as well and said, got it wrapped up yet? He used to drive for the team, obviously won a championship with them. And I said, well, they almost do. And they're like, no, not yet. Don't jinx us. Don't jinx us.
Yeah, I asked Memo the same thing when I saw him. You going to wrap it up this weekend? And he said, boy, I hope so. It's much nicer going into the final handful of races, right? When you already know you've got the title on lockdown. Yeah,
certainly. You don't want to take it right down to the wire. So I think the writing's on the wall, so to speak. He sees the white flag for one more lap around this awesome circuit. But yeah, it's always nice to take the pressure off because you never know what can happen. And Davis is getting really quick here, now under 3 seconds.
Well, he just did the race's best lap. He just took pole position away from Memo Gidley for race 2 tomorrow at 2:08.8.
Okay,
from
Memo,
Tony
what do you
Davis.
got? He's going to get that message immediately. You want pole tomorrow, mate? You got to dig deep on this last lap.
Game on. Tony Davis. Now will Memo step up to the plate, try and up the ante, or will he be content to score maximum points today and make the fight a fight during the race tomorrow, not a fight here for qualifying position in race 1?
Well, the car's at its lightest, so theoretically can be really quick. It's all about how he's managed those tires, but these Pirelli P0s have been proven to really hang on late in the going. We quite often see some really fast laps run, like we just saw from Davis there.
9/100ths of a second. That's the difference between who starts first and second tomorrow. Ross Schwest, by the way, would hopefully line up third. He was supposed to do that today, of course, and then had an issue on the grid. Had to start at the back of the SRO3 class. Scott Blend would start in 4th. Tomlinson, despite having the 5th fastest race lap, still would have to start behind all the SRO3 cars. But you know what? That means he gets to pass them
Have
tomorrow.
fun again.
That will probably be a pretty good time. Thanks to our friends at AWS for that. Don't see huge numbers from either front-running car through the first 2 sectors, so I think Davis's pole might be secure.
Yeah, it's a pretty average middle sector there for Gidley, so I don't think he wants to risk throwing the win away by going for that fast lap here in the final flourish, so to speak. But still a great run, but Davis Question of what might have been. Think about that gap that Gidley had established over those first 3 laps. He's cut it all the way back to basically under 2 seconds.
Nearly 6 seconds that he took out of Memo Gidley in the final 35 minutes of the race, but it's not going to be enough. Memo Gidley once again victorious in GT America, powered by AWS, extending that championship lead with just 5 races to go. He's not quite clinched it yet, but he's not far away. Tony Davis in second. Meanwhile, third overall has changed hands. Scott Blend around Lawrence Tomlinson, who's got the windshield wipers on. That might be telling a bit of the story here.
Gonna be
and
a
we'll have a
drag race.
drag race to the line to determine who finishes third overall. Tomlinson puts 800 horsepower to the ground. Blend tries to fend him off, but can't do it. Lawrence Tomlinson back around to take third on the road. Scott Blend, though, completes the podium in the SRO3 class, his first since the season opener.
That was wild, trading paint at probably about 150 miles an hour there on the run of the stripe.
You could see how the big smiles on the faces of the Team L&T crew. And look at the rain start to come down just as the checkered flag comes out.
Whew, this could have thrown a cat amongst the pigeons if it happened a couple of minutes earlier.
Wow. Blend across the line, Washington across the line, Schwest and Mutso as well. Just waiting on Mirko Schultes. He sees the checkered flag, 8th overall, 7th in class.
I hate to admit, but I did win a race on slicks and it rained after the finish and I didn't spin but went way off the racetrack. I think my mate Townsend Bell did it in a GT D race here as well a few years ago.
Where did that happen to you?
Brands Hatch.
What were you driving?
Formula 4 2000. Yeah.
Beat anybody notable?
Actually, Senna wasn't there that weekend and came through Druids. All
Well,
by
that
myself
explains
and
it.
just understood straight off the road. No one was home. Grip was gone.
Well, you lived to tell the story at least, and you got the trophy. That's what counts, I suppose. Craig Lumsden tiptoeing his way around in really tricky conditions. So too Dave Musial Sr., who might have had a better result if not for his spin about midway through the race. They'll make their way up the hill to see the checkered flag, and then they'll try to not pull a Calvin Fish, make it back to the paddock without an off-track excursion. David Lecco as well still needs to make it around. Looks like that's a foregone conclusion now, having rounded turn 14. And David in the backup car comes up the hill. We'll celebrate on the podium once again. There's the checkered flag for the man who calls Austin, Texas home.
I think the leaders were catching some of those sprinkles during that last lap. I heard Tony Davis go through the kink and kind of heard a big lift there, which he normally doesn't do. So I think he was feeling it, and the last laps were significantly slower, like 4 to 5 seconds off the pace.
Now, Memo Gidley, he'll know his way to victory lane here at Road America. 1 year ago, won race 1 of the doubleheader, finished second in race number 2. Here's a look at the results, by the way. Gidley by 2.3 seconds in the final analysis over Tony Davis. Then Tomlinson by just a couple tenths of a second. Great drag race to the line there for third overall. But Scott Blend will be on the podium in SRO3 for Ruckus Racing, his second of the season, just ahead of Kyle Washington. Ross Schwest, decent recovery, all things considered, but that could have been a whole lot more for Ross. Mark Mutso, Marco Schultes, Dave Musial Sr., Tony Ferraro rounding out the SRO3 field, then Lecco and Lumsden, 11th and 12th overall. Memo Gidley has parked it in victory lane and will celebrate once again, extending his championship lead now to the point where it's going to be very difficult to catch him if it wasn't already. 7 more points added to what had been a 75-point lead. It's up to 82 points with just 5 races to go in the 2026 season. Memo and the Ski Autosports team will celebrate this one, but they can't celebrate for long because race number 2 is coming up at 11:05 tomorrow morning Central Time here at Road America. But Memo Gidley victorious again in GT America, powered by AWS.